Going over IRS Form 15109, Request for Tax Deferment. So this form is made available for certain taxpayers who may have served in a combat zone or in support of contingency operations or a hazardous duty station that began or ended during a certain period of time. And generally speaking, you may have received a notice known as CP04 that basically indicates the Internal Revenue Service is aware of your possible involvement in a combat zone or deployment to a combat zone, but needs additional documentation. So if you're filing IRS Form 15109 in response to that notice, then you can follow the filing instructions on that notice. It doesn't really explain a whole lot of detail about completing this form, so we're going to go ahead and go through this form, and then we'll talk about the combat zones that may qualify. We'll talk about other ways to give this information to the Internal Revenue Service. So this is a pretty straightforward one-page tax form. At the very top has section 1. You'll enter the combat zone information that the IRS requires. And then in section 2, it outlines supporting documentation. So all of this basically is provided as a matter of law under Internal Revenue Code section 7508, which most military members are familiar with the concept of the combat zone tax exclusion, but section 7508 also specifically addresses the tax extension or tax deferment for virtually all tax-related issues that a normal individual taxpayer would face. Filing tax returns, paying your taxes, things of that nature. So in general, the extension lasts for 180 days after your last day in a qualifying area, or if you were hospitalized due to your involvement in a combat or contingency support operation, then 180 days after your hospitalization. So we've broken down all of the different qualifying areas. You can find a list in our article, which we pulled from IRS Publication 3, which is the Armed Forces Tax Guide. So most military members are familiar with the Arabian Peninsula, the Arabian Gulf, and that area. There are some other lesser known areas. Obviously, Afghanistan is still included, as well as much of the Middle East. But then places like Kosovo and the former Yugoslavia, the Sinai Peninsula is provided under public law. So there are areas that still qualify for a tax deferment, and a tax deferment is not available to just military members. Civilians who are deployed in support of these operations may also be eligible for a tax deferment. So we break down all of those areas in our article. We'll put a link in the show notes, and you can read the rest from there. So in this video, let's go ahead and go through section 1. We're going to put your taxpayer's name, social security number, the tax form and year. So in this case, John Doe has put his social security number down for an extension for the 2023 tax year. So the name of his organization, he's in the United States Navy, and we've put down a telephone number as well as the name of the combat zone or other area. So, and then you can put in your dates of entry and your dates of exit. Generally speaking, your 180 days begins on the day after you exit a contingency area. So in this case, John Doe would have had to file his tax return normally by the April 15th deadline in 2024. However, and that would also include paying any estimated taxes if he filed an extension. However, he receives 180 days from the date of his exit, so that puts his timeline closer to the end of May. So, and then for supporting documentation requirements, if you're a service member, you can include a copy of your military orders showing your deployment dates. If you're a civilian, you can include a copy of a letter of authorization for either a contractor or a civil service employee. And if you don't have either of those, then you can send a written statement from your employer or your command. So it does note that it just says a written statement. Most service members, most DoD civilians would understand whether or not this statement needs to be signed by your commanding officer. It does not. You can have your written statement signed or certified by your administrative or dispersing personnel. So the statement should include the dates that you worked in that combat zone or the hazardous duty station or your contingency operation. Now, if you're filing this in response to a CPO-4 notice, you can send all of that information in the information fields provided in that notice. There should be an envelope that's provided, so you don't need necessarily to file IRS Form 15109. This makes it somewhat straightforward. You can simply complete this form and then fax this and your authorization letter, your orders, or your written statement. You can fax that to the IRS at 855-233-8562. So that's all we have for this tax form. As I mentioned, it's pretty straightforward. It's simple, and you don't need to file it if you're responding to a CPO-4 notice. So we'll put links in the show notes to the videos and the articles on the topics and forms mentioned in this video. If you like, and you can read more about specifics such as the combat zone exclusion areas. If you need more detail, you can find that in our article. Simply go to teachmepersonalfinance.com, type in IRS Form 15109 in the search bar, and you should see our article appear. If you like our articles, please subscribe to our newsletter. If you like our YouTube videos, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. And as always, if you have any questions, comments, or if there's a topic that you'd like to see discussed in an upcoming video, hit me up in the comments section. Thank you very much and have a great day.